So, starting with the questions. Before going on to the questions, like correct, incorrect questions are usually asked for 2 marks. So, how would you present the answers? You have to start your answers saying either the answer is correct or incorrect, and then, comma, present your explanation. The explanation should be approximately 2 to 3 sentences. Okay, that depends upon the circumstances. Okay, so moving on to the questions. Okay, so as I've already said, all these questions are correct, incorrect questions asked for your exams. Okay, moving on to the first question. Okay, few members of board of directors oppose the appointment of Mr. N, an employee of the company, as the internal auditor, stating that Mr. N is not a CA and further he is an employee of the company. So basically, this statement is incorrect. Why? As per section 138, as per section 138 of Companies Act 2013, it states that internal auditor either can be a chartered accountant or it can be a cost accountant, both, whether or not in practice. Whether or not in practice, or any other professional. It can be a CA, cost accountant, or any other professional as authorized by board of directors. It can be including a employee of the company. Okay, so this is the summary of section 138 regarding the qualification of internal auditor. So in the given question, how will you answer? Answer is incorrect. As per section 138 of Companies Act 2013, internal auditor can be either a chartered accountant, cost accountant, both, whether or not in practice, or any other professional as decided by BOD, including the employee of the company. Okay, so this should be your answer for this particular question. Okay, so moving on to the second question. An auditor is considered to lack independence if the partner of the audit firm deals with the shares or securities of the audited entity. Here, the audited entity means it's your client. So basically the answer is correct, incorrect. The question is saying the auditor is considered to lack independence if partner is holding securities or shares. So the answer is correct. If you remember section 141, qualification and disqualification, subsection 3 dealing with disqualification, clause D, okay, and coming to subclause 1, that subclause 1 states that if you are holding any securities or interest in the company, or holding subsidiary, associate, or subsidiary of such holding company, either you, the person, or his partner or relative. This is section 141 3D subclause 1. So, in the given case, if you hold these shares, if you or your partner or your relative holds these securities or shares, it will be disqualified since it affects the independence. So, how will you present the answer? Answer is correct. As per section 141 3D1 of Companies Act 2013, a person, relative, partner holding any security or interest in the company, subsidiary, holding, associate, or subsidiary of such holding company is disqualified as it will affect the independence. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Okay, third question. PQR and Co. Chartered Accountants resigned from the audit of a government company. Okay, it's a government company and filed the resignation with the company as well as the register within 30 days. Comment whether PQR and Co. has complied with the provisions of Companies Act 2013. Okay, so answer is they have not complied. Okay, so the answer is not complied. So incorrect, they have not complied. If you remember section 140 subsection 2, section 140 is removal and resignation, subsection 2 dealing with resignation. Once an auditor resigns from the company, he has to file a statement in prescribed form, which is ADT 3, with company as well as ROC. However, if it is a government company, it should be also filed with the C&AG. So if you read the question, they have filed with company, fine. They have also filed with register, okay. But they have not filed with the C&AG. Hence, it is invalid. It is not as per section 140 subsection 2. So, answer is incorrect. As per section 140 subsection 2 of Companies Act 2013, in case of a government company, auditor has resigned, the statement in prescribed form ADT 3 should be filed with the company, ROC as well as C&AG within 30 days. Okay. So, moving on to the next question. Okay. K Limited, a non-government company, was incorporated on 1st October 2017. Okay. So, it's a non-government company. It has been just incorporated. Mr. B, the managing director of K Limited, himself appointed the first auditor of the company on 31st December 2017. Okay. So, basically the answer is incorrect or it is invalid. Why? If you know section 139 subsection 6, 139 deals with appointment of auditors. Subsection 6 is first auditor of a non-government company. Okay. It states that the first auditor shall be appointed by, okay, the first auditor shall be appointed by board of directors. Okay, it should be appointed by board of directors within 30 days of registration of the company. Okay, here the auditor is appointed by the managing director himself. See, managing director means it's only a one among the board of directors. Hence, it is invalid. So, coming to the answer, answer is incorrect. As per section 139 subsection 6 of Companies Act 2013, the first auditor of a non-government company shall be appointed by board of directors within 30 days of incorporation, failing which power will go to the members. So the answer is incorrect. Okay. So moving on to the next question. Question number 5. The incoming auditor should study Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association to check what? validity of appointment. On reading the question itself, we understand that the statement is incorrect. See, if you read memorandum, articles of association, you will get an idea about the objectives of the company, name of the company, and its internal affairs. To check if appointment is valid, you have to check compliance of section 139, 140 and 141. Memorandum and articles of association does not give any information regarding the validity of appointment. Okay. So coming to the answer is incorrect. Auditor shall check the compliance with sections 139, 140 and 141 to ensure the validity of appointment. Memorandum and articles of association mainly deals with the internal affairs of the company, like share capital, name clause, etc. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Question number 6. Government companies are also to be considered for the ceiling limit on number of audits. So this question is relating to ceiling limit. Okay. So before going on to the answer, okay, which section deals with the ceiling limit? 141 3 clause G. Okay, section 141 3G. It states that an auditor, a person or a partner holding audit of more than 20 companies are disqualified, meaning the limit is 20 audits. While calculating the limits, 4 audits are exempted: OPC, small company, dormant company, private company having paid up capital less than 100 crores. In these 4 companies, government companies are not excluded, meaning government companies are also included in the limit of 20. So this question says government companies are also to be considered for ceiling limit. So the answer is correct. As per 141 3G, a person or a partner can undertake up to 20 audits. 4 audits are exempted: OPC, small, dormant, private company with less than 100 crores. Since government companies are not specifically exempted, it shall be considered in ceiling limit. Is that clear? Okay. So moving on to the next question. Question number 7. Any partner of an LLP who is appointed as an auditor of a company can sign the audit report. Question says that any partner can sign the audit report on behalf of the firm. So naturally, the answer would be incorrect. No. See, section 141, qualification, subsection 2. 141 subsection 2, it states that in case a firm or LLP is appointed as auditor, okay, any partner who is a CA as per CA Act shall act and sign on behalf of the firm. So to be qualified to sign the audit report, he should be a partner as well as a CA holding COP. The question just mentions that he is only a partner. Hence the answer is incorrect. So how will you proceed? Answer is incorrect. As per section 141 subsection 2 of Companies Act 2013, in case of a firm or LLP, any partner who is a CA as per CA Act, that is CA holding valid COP can sign the audit report. Okay. So, moving on to the next question. 8th question. The board of directors of ABC Limited, a listed company, okay, so it's a listed company at Bombay Stock Exchange, is required to fill the casual vacancy of an auditor only after taking into account the recommendation of audit committee. Okay, so if you remember section 139 appointment subsection 11, 139 subsection 11, it states that where a company is required to form a audit committee under section 177, they shall make all appointment including casual vacancy after taking into consideration the recommendation of audit committee. And now if you see section 177 dealing with audit committee, it states for every listed committee, for every listed company, audit committee is mandatory. So combined reading of 139.11 and 177, since the question, it says ABC is a listed company, right? So it has to constitute audit committee. And hence, before appointing every auditor, including casual vacancy, it has to obtain recommendation. So the question says is required to fill casual vacancy only after taking into account recommendation. So the answer is correct. So how will you write? Answer is correct as per section 139 subsection 11. Okay. Where a company is required to constitute audit committee under section 177. Okay. All appointments of auditor, including casual vacancy, shall be made after taking into account the recommendation of audit committee. Okay. So basically that answer is correct. So moving on to the next question. 9th one. The auditors of a company can attend that general meeting in which accounts audited by them are discussed. It's clearly the statement is invalid. Okay, incorrect. Section 146, right of an auditor to receive the notice, and he shall attend the general meeting. He shall attend the general meeting unless exempted. That section does not specify auditor should attend only the general meeting in which audited accounts are discussed. So the answer is incorrect because the question says he can attend only the meeting in which audited accounts are discussed. So the answer is incorrect. So how will you present? Incorrect. As per section 146, auditor has the right to receive the notice and shall attend general meeting unless exempted, either by himself or through his authorized representative. Okay. So moving on to the 10th question. Where the firm is appointed as auditor of an entity, the audit report is signed only in the name of the firm. So here firm is being appointed and the question tells when they give the report, it will be signed only in the name of the audit firm. Basically the answer is incorrect. Okay. If you have seen the signature in case of a firm's audit report, it will contain the name of the member, membership number, firm name, firm number, as well as it will have the designation. of the person who is signing. Meaning, it has to be signed in his individual name as well as the firm name. Okay. So the answer is incorrect. In case of a firm is appointed as auditor, audit report shall be signed in personal name, okay, along with his membership number as well as in the name of the firm along with firm's registration number. Okay. So that's the 10th question. Moving on to the next question, the 11th one. If appointment of a auditor other than the existing auditor is void ab initio, okay, then it would be treated as casual vacancy. Again, the answer is incorrect. Huh? Casual vacancy means a vacancy which arises after auditor is appointed and auditor ceases to act as auditor. Like, death, resignation, unsound mind, all these. Here it says that the new auditor is appointed and it will be a void ab initio, meaning such an appointment has not taken place. Hence, it cannot be a casual vacancy. So what will happen? As per 139.10, okay, the existing auditor shall continue. Okay. So answer is incorrect. Since the new auditor's appointment is void ab initio, it won't amount to casual vacancy. Hence, the existing auditor shall continue as per 139 subsection 10. Okay. Moving on to the 12th question. Okay. The auditors reporting on internal financial control, IFC, will be applicable with respect to interim financial statements. Say IFC section 143 subsection 3. 143 subsection 3 is duty to state in auditor's report. In that, to be more specific, clause I, it states that auditor should report on the internal financial controls, whether it is adequate and operating effectively. This 143 section will apply, mainly auditor's duty, only for the usual audits. Here it says it's an interim audit. Okay, interim audit. Hence, this reporting under 143 shall not be applicable. So the answer is incorrect. Okay. As per 143 subsection 3, duty to state in auditor's report whether internal financial controls are adequate and operating effectively. This applies only for those audit under 143. Hence it is not applicable for interim financial statements audit except as required by law. Always that exemption will come, no? Except as required by law or regulations. Moving on to the 13th question. CAK has resigned as an auditor after 2 months of his appointment in NML Limited. He needs to file ADT 3 with registrar within 60 days from the date of resignation. I think in the earlier question, similar section we have discussed. So I'll move on directly to the answer. So the answer is incorrect. As per section 140 subsection 2, if an auditor resigns from the company, he has to file the statement in prescribed form, that is ADT 3, with company, ROC, C&AG if government company, within 30 days. Here it is given 60, hence it is incorrect. Okay. So moving on to the second last question. Yeah. Rule 3 of Companies Cost Records and Audit Rule 2014. Okay. CRA rules provides that classes of companies engaged in production of goods or providing services having an overall turnover of 25 crores or more during immediately preceding financial year is required to include cost records in their books of accounts. If you see section 148, read along with the rules. Okay. Rules on cost records and audit. It says every manufacturing and producing company having a turnover exceeding or equal to 35 crores in previous year shall maintain cost records. Here the amount is given as 25 crores. The answer should have been 35. So answer is incorrect. So how will you present? Incorrect. As per section 148, read along with rules. Every manufacturing or producing company having turnover exceeding or equal to 35 crores in preceding year shall maintain their books in form CRA 1. So, moving on to the last question of this section. Bharatiya Gas Limited, a government company, the C&AG of India, in respect of a financial year, appoint a duly qualified auditor under Companies Act within 180 days from the end of the financial year, who shall hold the office till the end of next financial year. So clearly it's a government company and subsequent auditor, 139 subsection 5. It states subsequent auditor of a government company, okay, shall be appointed by C&AG within 180 days of commencement of financial year, okay, but he will hold the office till when? Till next AGM. But here in the question, they have given till the next financial year, which is invalid. So the answer is incorrect. As per 139 subsection 5, okay, subsequent auditors of a government company shall be appointed by C&AG within 180 days of commencement of financial year. Till this all is fine, huh? What is the correction? Who shall, the last sentence, who shall hold the office till the conclusion of next AGM. Okay. So thus we conclude this video session. I hope it was useful. So for any doubts relating to auditing, you can either WhatsApp me or you can mail me. Okay. So take care, be safe.